Welcome to Remainders, where we talk everything the movies. My name is Patrick. With me is the always reliable and not so paranoid Darren Farrell. Today we're going to be talking about 2007's The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. I was hoping I was going to get the title right. Did I do all right, Darren?
You did great. I mean, that is a title. I mean, I don't know how they got away with such a long title. I don't even know how we fit it in our Zoom meeting here for this podcast, but that is maybe the longest title we've ever explored here on Remainders. You did a good job.
Oh, definitely. It's definitely the longest title. I don't know. It feels like an unnecessary moniker. I mean, most people are calling this The Assassination of Jesse James, and they just kind of end there. And I'm fully fine with that. Although I do love how, I mean, we're a heavy spoilers podcast, and this is a movie where the spoilers are in the title. So that's why I was okay with it.
Yeah, that's actually true. And I'll tell you what, I mean, after you see this film and you watch Casey Affleck's performance, you may think, oh, I'm glad that they used Bob Ford in the title because, wow, did he really show up? Some may say even eclipsed the legend Brad Pitt himself.
We'll have a lot to get into, but yeah, I think it's one of my favorite performances of both of them. Well, Pitt is way up there, and Casey Affleck will actually be covering another one of his, and it's I think it's a tie with that. So,
yeah, that's it's tough to pit this against Manchester because that's so good. But yeah, this is really good, and I mean, wow. I guess sometimes
Wait! Just really quick, was that a purposeful pun that you pit this against Manchester? Or that was a pure accident?
That was pure accident. I'm pretty proud of myself right now. Now that you brought it to my attention,
I'm giving you the credit that you subconsciously did that on purpose.
I'm glad we don't have to pit this movie against each other because that would be bad. Yeah, I mean, listen. When you said you wanted to cover this, I was all for it because this is been one of my favorite films for a very long time, specifically because of the cinematography, which I think is one of the reasons this movie has stayed with so many audience, amongst other things like the score and other things, and just the fact of the folklore itself. Jesse James as a character in American culture, it doesn't go away. I mean, this sort of, I mean, even in our favorite Warren Zevon, he made a song about Frank and Jesse James. So it's something that people have been talking about for a very long time. And to see Brad Pitt and Casey Affleck in this is wonderful, especially when I was about to say Casey Affleck plays such a shithead character. I mean, this is like the kind of like the echelon for an actor. If you can play a shithead character and really get the audience to hate you, you're really doing your job well. And I believe he has done that in this film.
So he is, but at the same time, I feel like the movie is kind of tongue in cheek. Like it says it in the title. I mean, you have Brad Pitt, everybody and their mother loves Brad Pitt. And in the title, by the coward Robert Ford, he's murdered. So automatically, you've already sided the entire audience against him. And so he does play into that. But at the same time, I really like how this movie subverts the Jesse James and everybody's character, basically. I mean, maybe you know more about it, but like Jesse James was like a mythical figure. And in movies before, he was always portrayed as like the good guy. But like he's as much of a psycho as anybody else in this movie.
Well, it's kind of the exact same thing that happens today. If you have a bunch of people talking about you one way and it's positive, no matter what you do, you're heralded as the king. Look no further than some of our presidents that we've had. So the idea of like a folklore character, as time goes on, you're only as big as the stories that continue to be told, right? And that's why we talked about with Elvis being coming out in theaters and that story being told again and, reaching audiences and reminding them of who they are. It's very, storytelling is like that. It's as you tell it and, it goes on to the next person, there might be one detail that gets distorted or changed. So this has always been that Jesse James is, they say it right at the beginning of this film. He's not a good guy. He's killed a bunch of people, but they do make him an interesting guy and
Yeah.
also very sympathetic in a lot of ways. And you can see as the story is being told why back in the day there was such reverence for Jesse James coming out of the Civil War, needing a hero that kind of stood up against, almost like a Robin Hood character. They're looking at him as.
Right. And that's, again, like I said, I haven't read like too many biographies or any biographies. I don't know much about the true character, but like that's the sense that I've always kind of gotten, that he's both. He was a psychotic outlaw and kind of a Robin Hood character. And I think that's, like I was saying, with previous movies, I know he was always portrayed as the hero, and this one was just like, this is just who the guy was. I mean, like, he is the only character in the movie that tortures like a child. And so it's definitely not making it any qualms about like who he is or what kind of person he was. And that's why I love the title so much. It's like, everybody loves Brad Pitt. He's going to get murdered by this coward Robert Ford, but like, certainly wasn't that clear cut.
Right. And I think before we go any further, it might be good for the audience to get a little understanding of what this film is about. Do you have anything written up for a little synopsis?
Yeah, it really is just the story of Robert Ford. He idolized Jesse James as a child, and he tries to join the changing gang, because like that is, I think, an important part is that we start the movie basically with Frank and Jesse James parting ways. Frank, the older brother of the Brad Pitt, he's leaving the gang. And Robert Ford is introduced as like automatically somebody who's in awe of this gang, especially Jesse James. And he becomes basically disillusioned over the course of the movie as he kind of learns more about who the man really is and the paranoia surrounding it. And that's ultimately what this movie is about, as far as I can see. It's like paranoia. And we can get more into it, but like it's such a great theme for a movie, because it runs so many, you can run it in so many directions. And in this one, taking it with a true story, I think, is what makes it so awesome. And so,
getting caught up in the fame of it all too, the paranoia, the fame, the stories that are being told about Jesse James. And for anybody out there who doesn't know who Jesse James is, as we mentioned earlier, sort of a folk hero, but he was a real person who robbed trains and killed people. I mean, straight up.
Yeah. And it's beautifully shot. That's the thing. It's like when you can make a train robbery this gorgeous, you're like, man, that's looking pretty good this weekend. Let's
call up Roger Deakins and see if we can make this a love story, a train robbery.
Right. So, I mean, first off, I want to know more about your experience. So, like, we spoke briefly. I had seen this movie twice, like right when it came out. Not in theaters. I remember getting it on the Netflix physical DVDs in the red envelopes, which, side note, literally just ended, I think, this month.
Oh, wow.
Officially. Like, they've been going still, but they are officially closed up shop with the physical DVDs. So some people are going strong with them. But
saving a little money there so they can pay their writers.
Right. So that's a bygone era. But I remember watching it twice when it first came out on DVD, and I had not seen it ever since. But it definitely is one that stuck with me. But you've mentioned, like you said at the opening, like this is a movie that you've revisited quite a bit. So I'm excited to hear like what is your favorite part of this movie, because like that's what this is all about. I'm here to learn more about what your tastes are and what your favorite stuff is. I know quite a bit, and I love learning more about it.
Yeah, it's a weird thing about this film because it's not, again, something I would jump into. Feels like a Western, and I'm not like quick to jump onto Westerns or war films. I was going to say,
that's what I thought.
Yeah, but in 2007, I had seen this and it just blew me away. I mean, the combination of it all kind of has to all work together. The acting, the story of something that's kind of what I've heard about this in history. I always love biographies and things like that. And then Brad Pitt, this is the first film really that I watched with him where I thought, okay, I get Brad Pitt now. And, I think this is around the time 2007 of Fight Club and things like that. So Brad Pitt was really popping off at this point, but this is a little more of a serious role for him. And I wouldn't say he's great in this film. Brad Pitt is good in this film. And I think the cool thing about Brad Pitt is you kind of always get Brad Pitt. It's sort of like the idea of the old actors when you see these guys like Brad Pitt. It's not like he's ever like a super chameleon where he changes like Johnny Depp or anything like that. But you get this like handsome, fucking dashing star. He's a star, and that's what you go to the movies to see sometimes. And man, he looks fucking kick ass in this. He's acting his ass off like more than I ever seen. And I'm like, you know what? I can get on board with Brad Pitt. It's kind of like took me a while with him, just like it did with Leo. But then once I'm in. And like now I just feel like Brad Pitt is just such a legend. I know he also championed this film big time. And then again, talking about the score, the score is so haunting. I know we'll get into that because I know you love Nick Cave so much. But yeah, the cinematography with Roger Deakins, it's just like, I love all those like kind of tin type feel. And I read a little bit more about some of the transitions that they did and why. And there's a lot of time lapse things that are happening in this before the iPhones, before everybody could do time lapses. This was happening in here to kind of show the passage of time. There was a lot to take in. I had not really ever seen a film quite like this before. And it's the visuals just stuck with me. So I would always go back and want to just kind of see this film again. And that's so wonderfully like such a part of like movies. Like it could be just one thing that really sticks out that just lags in your brain for so long. And you're like, I got to see this film again. Like, why do you go and see a movie twice? Well, for me, it's just the visuals, and then you get the bonus of all these other things I talked about.
Man, so much good stuff there. Let's stay on Pitt for a minute. So this was the movie that kind of sold you on him. So, I mean, I'm looking at his IMDb. I mean, if you were an instant Fight Club fan, I think that was a big one for a lot of people. That was 99.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. This is quite a bit later then.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I could definitely, I'm with you. Because I mean, the thing about Pitt was he was always too good looking for his own good, because he is an awesome actor, an awesome character actor. He was just so good looking that he was constantly being put into like, I don't know, maybe the less interesting leading roles.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is you want to say like in 2001-ish or something, there was, of course, Soderbergh's great film, the remake of Ocean's 11. And Brad Pitt is fucking awesome in that. But again, that's an ensemble cast. So I kind of like what you're saying. It's like to see Brad Pitt leading a film, I think it wasn't like I was really sold on it until this movie. Because I love him in all those films. There's no doubt about it. But to kind of like click and be like, yeah, this guy is a star. He's going to be around. He's not going anywhere. This was the film for me.
And then it's like, I mean, I always look back to his smaller performance as Floyd in True Romance is like just one of his funniest, and that's why I've always loved his more oddball roles that he kind of explores more later. It's easy to like kind of look back and be like, wow, this guy was playing at an early start. But so yeah, this was 2007. Just for context, like Babel was the year before. I know that was kind of a big one, but I haven't seen it since then. And then the year after was Burn After Reading. And then also in the same year was The Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Yeah, so I feel like so good.
Yeah. Like that was kind of the, and then
Glorious Bastards in 2009.
And then a year after that. So like this 2-year span, he definitely gained a lot of credibility, I think, like as an actor, for sure. Which I'm all for it because like I was texting you, I just rewatched Burn After Reading for the first time since the theaters, and man, that movie is fucking fantastic. Like it was not one like all the recent Coen Brothers movies, like Hail Caesar and A Serious Man. They've all hit me like instantly. I automatically love those. But Burn After Reading, I was like okay on. But man, Frances McDormand, Malkovich, Brad Pitt, George Clooney, and Tilda Swinton, just all in this ridiculous comedy that still kind of plays it straight. Because of like the caliber of actors in that one. I think that's one that definitely warrants a lot of revisiting because it is fantastic.
I'm like a big proponent of seeing that again because I felt the same after I first saw it. I was like, oh, this is so weird. I'm not sure I get this. But that's kind of the Coen Brothers for me anyway, Even like a Raising Arizona or something, when I first saw that, I was just, again, I was enamored with it because I didn't really get it. And it was like weird, but I loved it for some reason. So yeah I would love to revisit Burn After Reading.
And then one last one with Brad Pitt that I fucking love is it's larger because I mean the movie's fantastic. He's great in it, but the movie is just so fucking great. It's Moneyball. I fucking love Moneyball.
And you're not even like a baseball fan so much.
So here's the thing. I like sports. I rarely spend time watching a lot of sports as an adult, but I fucking love sports movies. I've always loved sports movies for whatever reason, ever since a kid, watching like something like Rudy, Bad News Bears, White Men Can't Jump. And there's, I could just give you a list of so many sports movies that I fucking love. And it's, I've thought about this. One, a lot of sports movies are character studies, which is one of my favorites. And the other part is a lot of sports movies, like Moneyball, they contextualize sports and to tell a larger story about like society. And that one is because, so I mean, it's one that's interesting because like the way the money works, there's a set amount of money you can spend on players in football, but that's not the case for baseball. So if you just have more money, you're probably going to win more. And it's just the story of America. If you're born with more money, if you have access to more resources, you're probably going to win more. So it being like the underdog story in Moneyball, I fucking love it. And he's great in it. It's just a movie that I've revisited every couple of years that I absolutely love.
Yeah, it is a great film. And also, I was just talking recently with my friend Tom, and we were talking about the Cubs. You know, I'm a huge Cubs fan. And sometimes, you know, it's like you don't even know every single player on the team that year. But then, like, you explain going to the games and, like, why do people love sports? Well, like, there's this feeling of joy. You're in the present moment and you get to experience it with not just yourself, but a whole bunch of other people who feel the same way. For the most part, everybody is there waiting on every pitch to, like, possibly be a home run. And when that happens, you're high-fiving everybody and there's that feeling. And it's always like that next pitch could be that home run. And it's just exciting. It's a fun feeling. And I think sometimes more than anything, that's why the people call it America's pastime, is that sports are just fun. And I like what you're saying, you know, the lot of the films like Hoosiers, that, you know, we could probably name a million, you know, Brian's song, right? The one about the Bears, and you mentioned Rudy, all these different like overcoming challenges and metaphors for life through sports. And it's such a perfect vehicle. So I agree with you. I love that.
I mean, because I've definitely spent way more time in my life watching sports movies than I have actually watching sports games. So
yeah,
I mean, granted, although I have thought about this growing up in Chicago as a child. I mean, I was perfect timing. I had a 10-year run of watching Michael Jordan and the Bulls, which is like such a gift to be able to be a kid in Chicago. So sometimes I almost feel like subconsciously I was like, it's never going to get any better than that. So,
I mean, has it?
Right, exactly. So like, I'm still so grateful. I spent so much time watching the Bulls and Jordan grow as a kid. It's just, I would prefer to watch a sports movie now as an adult. So, yeah,
and I definitely think that that's a great thing about the city of Chicago. There's always like, you know, there's something about being from Chicago that I just see people walking around with their Cubs hats or their Bulls hats or, you know, shirts or whatever, and you automatically can just relate to them and just know something about them without even having to talk to them. And that's another thing that I think sports does. It connects people in some sort of a weird patriotic way.
Yeah. And so, yeah, Pitt in this movie, I think he's actually fucking great. Because it is. So, I mean, one thing to realize, like, he's not the main character of the movie. It's definitely Robert Ford is the main character. Casey Affleck's character in it. He is what the movie is about. And so sometimes I kind of feel like maybe that's why this movie didn't instantly connect with people in 2007, because it didn't do too well. And I think I mentioned, like, I didn't even realize this. In like a 3-month period, it was this movie, No Country for Old Men, and There Will Be Blood. All came out in theaters at the end of 2007. So I feel like, which I actually just found out, Roger Deakins, he was the cinematographer for all three. But I feel like those two movies coming out, which they're both fucking awesome, we've covered one of them on the show, they maybe overshadowed this one a little bit. And it is a little bit of
a lot of it. That's a pretty crazy
Yeah, right.
trifecta there.
I mean, I complain about movies these days sometimes, but like, man, when you look back at that's what the end of 2007 looked like. It's like, shit, man, the good old days. But it is a kind of a slow burn of a movie. And largely because of, like we were saying, like it has these characters that you don't really know who's the good guy or the bad guy all the time. And that can be kind of disorienting, even for, a first time viewer or somebody watching a movie all the time. So, but one line I think we can jump into, Brad Pitt's character says, that kind of sums up the movie is, I can't figure it out. Do you want to be like me or do you want to be me? And I think that kind of like totally sums up like what this movie is about and what the character is about. And when you combine that with the paranoia of his character, and that's a huge reason why the movie works so awesome, because Brad Pitt is great at being paranoid, and he just has so much good stuff in this movie coming from that.
Yeah, there's a lot that's not said. That's why I think I was like really on board with Brad Pitt. He doesn't say too much in this film, and there's a lot of times where he's kind of looking off, and you're kind of like, "What's going on in this guy's mind?" And right. I think that's a real big credit to Brad Pitt and how he's playing the character. Because like you said earlier, he's kind of childish in a lot of ways, but then he's also very ruthless and very. You would be scared to be around him because you just don't know what you're going to get. But then he also is like somewhat like kind and soft. You see him with his wife. It's a complex character that they've written here. And I really do feel like that's a big credit to Brad Pitt and how he plays it. But then on the other hand, same with Bob Ford. I mean, like you see the facial things that he's doing and you just want to punch him half the time,
I mean, did I say that Brad Pitt's character was childish?
I thought you said he was acting childish, but I do feel like he does, like when he beats up the kids and stuff like that. Like
I said, he was beating up a child. Yeah, I definitely said that. Gotcha, but no, I mean, it's like the whole group is childish, and I wrote that in my notes. It's like the first half of the movie when you have like the Sam Rockwell character and Jeremy Renner's character, the way they're teasing Casey Affleck's character and the way they talk to each other in general, it's just like a bunch of boys and
like having sex, talking about having sex with
there's a bunch of boys just fighting each other, talking about sex, and then teasing Bob Ford the whole time. So it's like that really sets the tone, and Brad Pitt's character is just kind of hanging on the side, being a little bit kind of like the stoic figure that you watch slowly descend into paranoia throughout the rest of the film.
Yeah. And I mean, so we didn't talk too much about the director, Andrew Dominique. Is that how you say it? I think that's how you say it. Andrew Dominique. And I don't really know too much about him. But it looks like he had written this film as well and obviously championed it from a book in 1983. So
Ron Hansen.
Yeah. I was going to say, have you known much about his career?
So this is, I mean, he only had like music videos beforehand, and then a movie called Chopper in 2000, which I have not seen. And this was only his second feature, really. Wow. So he started, I mean, very few people knew who he was at the time, which is another reason why, like, it drowned out from the Coen brothers and P.T. Anderson that same year. It's like he just wasn't a well-known director. I saw Killing Them Softly, which was his third movie. That came out in 2012, also starring Brad Pitt, which is great. Highly recommended. But I mean, I've kept up with him because he does a lot of work with Nick Cave. He does a lot of Nick Cave music videos, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds videos, and then Nick Cave's documentaries and music documentaries. One More Time with Feeling is one of the more prominent ones where it covers like his life and is also part concert film. So he's definitely a director I've kept up with largely because of his working relationship with Nick Cave. So
interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't have known that they were that close. But I know you're such a Nick Cave super fan. Maybe this is a good spot to talk about Nick Cave in this film. Obviously, he has a great cameo.
He's a fucking fantastic cameo. He was born to play a barroom musician. Because he I'm like, yeah, who needs a jukebox when you got Nick Cave on the violin singing that? So,
Yeah.
the score I fucking love.
It's tremendous. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and it is Nick Cave with Warren Ellis, by the way, Warren Ellis from the Bad Seeds and Grinder Man, who they've mostly kind of become the touring partners, because the Bad Seeds have they haven't broken up, but they definitely have stopped like making music together. So it's largely been Nick Cave and Warren Ellis working full time together, and they're. I mean, Warren Ellis joined the band like around 2000, and then they started making scores with The Proposition in 2005, which we covered, also from Nick Cave's script. And so they've been like the movie duo working together. And yeah, this is like one of their best scores, because I mean, when you combine the score with Roger Deakins' cinematography, like it's like a moving. It literally is just a moving picture. It's a movie, and every shot just looks beautiful, especially when you're hearing it with Nick Cave's score.
There's a couple other films. Speaking of this actual year, the film you mentioned before, There Will Be Blood, with the score by I forget his name now, but he's in Radiohead.
Johnny Greenwood,
and then also the score by. Gosh, what's his name? Why am I this is escaping me? But Jim Jarmusch's film Dead Man.
Who did the score for that one? I don't remember. I haven't seen that one for a while.
Come on, Neil Young.
Oh, nice. Hell yeah.
So there's something about like actual musicians when they're doing scores like this, that they just kind of get it in a way that others don't. Or I shouldn't say that, but I'm talking about touring musicians, maybe rock and roll musicians that kind of do things a little different. And those three films are case in point.
Well, I mean, I'm not speaking for them or any artist doing scores, but like it largely has to do with if you have like a cinematic mind. If you create music with like visuals in your mind, and then it sounds like you're perfect for making a movie score, because it is a huge difference. There's a huge difference between making music to be listened to and then making music to accompany like a moving picture in a movie.
I mean, even Danny Elfman,
right.
When I saw him at Coachella 2 years ago, he had a full orchestra with him, and then also the visuals from most of the films kind of like in the background on the monitors and stuff. I think that's a really good point, being able to see things cinematically like that.
It's like ever since Nick Cave started making music with The Birthday Party, like his lyrics were always very storytelling, very visual, often telling a story. I mean, he started writing novels in the 80s. So like he's just been like a storyteller. And again, like if you can like fit that into like a visual component, like it just fits right in. That's why like everything he's done to score films has been awesome. So.
Yeah, and that's cool. This is the second film we get to watch with him having done it, and only a couple years apart from The Proposition.
Yep. He's on fire, man. And I mean, Nick Cave and Brad Pitt have been friends ever since, which I still have not seen the whole movie, but they have that awesome scene together in Johnny Suede. Did you ever see Johnny Suede from 1991?
No.
Tom DeSillo, who directed, what's the big one? Delirious, Living in Oblivion is one that a lot of people might know.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, I saw that in film class.
Oh, nice. I remember watching it.
In high school.
Man, you're old.
Yeah, right. I mean, everybody went to high school at some point. You don't know when I went to high school. Could have been last week.
I do personally, and I can assure our audience you're old. But Johnny Suede, I still haven't seen the whole movie, but I have seen the scene together. It's Brad Pitt and Nick Cave. They both, I mean, Brad Pitt, if you haven't seen the movie, just Google Johnny Suede. Brad Pitt has this giant, Johnny Bravo, basically pompadour. It's like a foot tall blonde pompadour in the movie. That's what the character is. And in this scene, Nick Cave is bleach blonde, wearing an all-white suit, so they look amazing together. Just having this chat outside this restaurant or something. So they've been kind of friends ever since, and they actually just put on an arts installation over the last year or two together. When Brad Pitt's been doing a little bit more tactile art, and that's something Nick Cave's always done. So they had a art show together. And so, yeah, it's pretty awesome that they just kind of vibe together. And from years of loving both of them, I can definitely see like the style and why they jive so well together. So
yeah, it's a cool pairing, and I'll tell you what, I can't wait till I'm that third wheel in that art show. It's going to be great. Me, Nick Cave, Brad Pitt. It's going to be awesome.
Oh man, I don't know, dude. You're going to show them both up. You're going to embarrass them both with your shit. So.
I know. I mean, it would be a little hard for they may just like not want to do it because of that, because of the style and how I might show them up. But yeah, I'm putting it out there in the universe, guys. If you're listening to the podcast, let's go. Come
on. Yeah. So stick with Dominic just a little bit more. Yeah. I would recommend checking out Killing Them Softly. It's definitely not as good as Assassination, but it is a pretty great movie. It's kind of a crime thriller where Brad Pitt is like loan shark almost, and it's just kind of a meditation on America and crime. And it does have one of the best closing lines in movies with Brad Pitt just telling a brief story about how America is not a country, it's a business. And it's just such an amazing ending to the movie that it's worth it for that scene alone. So.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I really do want to see that. I didn't realize that's from the same director.
Very fun movie. It doesn't hold up to this one because this one is a stone cold classic. So
yeah. So one kind of bit part plays Frank James, Jesse James' brother, and is only in it basically in the beginning. But Sam Shepard. What are your thoughts on Sam Shepard? Had you known him before? He passed, I think, within the last 3 years here.
It looks like he passed in 2017. Yeah, he's one who's always been a little elusive to me. I mean, I know he's a playwright, and he's showed up in a lot of movies that I've really liked in the last 10, 15 years. I'm just looking at some Cold in July, which is a great movie with David from 6 Feet Under. Out of the Furnace, Mud with McConaughey. He shows up in Killing Them Softly. But besides that, it's not. I'm just looking at his.
He was in that show Bloodline too, which I think was like one of the last things he's done. But I just figured because he was a writer, maybe you had been on your radar a little bit more.
Not much from his writing, no. Like I said, I haven't read any of the. Like I don't know if he does like novels or anything, but I haven't really read many of his screenplays. That's right. He's in Days of Heaven. That's like one of his first movies. That's definitely what I know him from most. The Terrence Malick movie. Yeah, he's the husband. Right? Yeah. A high-level laborer convinces a woman that he loves to marry their rich but dying boss. Yeah, I haven't seen that one for a while, but I definitely. That's probably the one that most people would probably know the most from his face.
Well, I had heard that this film didn't do well, and I don't know, I'm trying to put it into the 2007, like you said, and try to understand, was it the movies that were going on at the time? Was it the fact that this was a little slow? Was it the fact that it was almost 3 hours long? I mean, it seems like
I would say both of those things. A little slow, and like I said, mostly because it just got overshadowed by those two fucking
behemoths.
Domineering. Yeah, I mean, nothing was going to beat those two. So.
Because there's a lot of folks that I've talked to. It's like, oh, I love this film. It's like I don't really feel like I ever talked to anybody who's not liked this film. And like I said, it's weird that I keep on going back to it. Like I didn't even really probably have to rewatch it for this, conversation because I know it so well. I must have had it on DVD or something because I must have watched it so many times. It was ingrained in my head. However, obviously before we watching it at a different stage in your life always makes the film a little different. And I don't know. I just really enjoyed the watch this time through like thoroughly. I wish that, Apple Plus, like, what is the deal? So like, okay, let's get Apple Plus because we love John Hamm. So like, it'll be worth it because we have to rent it anyway. So we rent the film.
Wait, which film?
We rent Apple Plus. Okay. So I didn't have this on like, digital or anything like that, but I guess it was free on Prime, but then it went away. I'm just making a point here.
Okay.
Okay. So this is like an insane thing to me. So we get Apple Plus because again, my girlfriend's like, well, I think we'd love to watch this like the newsroom or whatever it's called and like John Hamm's going to be on it for the next season. So she's like, I'll get Apple Plus. And like, it looks like,
it's a show. It's a new show that's on Apple Plus.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, that's why we got it. And then we were like, at the same time, we don't have to spend like the $2.99 to rent it because it's going to be on Apple Plus. And so like, fine. Like she's like, I want to get it anyway because I'll get it for a month because I'm going to watch the show. So we get it. And I'm like, okay, we're digging in. We're about to watch it. And it's like, you have to rent it still. Like, what is the deal? We just paid for the subscription. Why do you have to pay to rent the movie again? It's bonkers, dude. You know what I mean? Like, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I have never gotten Apple Plus. I'll let you finish. I got a tangent about Apple Plus.
I'm basically finished. I'm just trying to say, like, we would have just rented it. I get it. Like, okay, it was free at one point, and then it's $2.99 to rent it. So I get it. Well, I didn't catch it on time. No problem. That makes sense. Like, and I would pay to see this movie because I don't care. Whoever gets residuals from it should because it's a kick-ass movie. Okay. No problem there. But what I'm saying is we went and got Apple Plus because we saw it was on there.
Right.
But we got the subscription to Apple Plus, and then you still have to rent the film once you get Apple Plus.
Well, Amazon Prime's the same way. I mean, you pay for Prime, and then some movies are on Prime, but they have almost everything else. Most things are legal to stream, and you pay for those movies.
I mean, I suppose you're right. It's just crazy to me.
Look, I'm not, trust me, I'm the last one to defend all this streaming bullshit that we've gone into. I've definitely transitioning back into physical media way more again, but like, I'm just saying, like, that's not any different from Amazon Prime. So,
okay, well, good point. I guess you're right. I guess I just don't think about it all the time because everybody just inherently has Prime because they get like other stuff delivered, their washing machines and all the other crazy shit.
Oh shit. That reminds me. I got my dryer coming in soon. So okay, let's stay on Apple Plus for a second. So like I said, I've never had Apple Plus. I love Apple on my Mac, but I've never done Apple Plus, but I am 100% going to be getting Apple Plus this winter because a couple things coming out. There is a new Japanese Godzilla that I'm excited for, Godzilla -1. But the other thing that's going to make me get Apple Plus is the American Godzilla TV show. It's called Monarch, and it is a Godzilla TV show starring one Kurt Russell.
Whoa.
So me, and I'm sure a lot of people listening are like that. It may not be surprising, but the fact that there is a Godzilla TV show starring Kurt Russell is like a match made in heaven for me. So I was raised.
For most people who love him,
I was raised on both of those, Godzilla and Kurt Russell, and so for him to come in and be part of the monster universe that they've been doing with the last 4 movies, which I fucking love, the last 4, like the Godzilla versus King Kong, and then the Kong Skull Island. Fantastic. And so this is going to be a show with his son actually playing a earlier version of himself. So it's the same character, but his son is playing like the early version of Monarch, Monarch is basically the bureaucratic government administration that covers up the monsters and the kaiju for the regular people. So that's just a short synopsis if you haven't been following it. But the preview just dropped. Looks fantastic. So I will officially be getting Apple Plus in November when that comes out.
Yeah, wow. See, that's the thing is like you put out something that people are love, and then there goes the subscriptions. But also I like the fact that they're not using AI to de-age Kurt Russell. They're using his kid,
I didn't even think about that. That is a 10 times better of an option. I'm all for I feel like just as a collective, we should say to everybody, it's like, we don't give a shit if you have an actor that doesn't look like the other actor. It's like, we just 10 times rather see another. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people are just like, well, it's got to look like the same person. It's like,
well,
no.
like not when it takes you out of the film, you know, like that's the thing is like, it was almost more distracting to see Indiana Jones de-aged, like looking young.
100%. Yeah.
But with like basically an old voice. It was like, what's going on here, you know?
Everybody could take a cue from that Bob Dylan movie where he had like Kate Blanchett and Richard Gere and Heath Ledger were all playing Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we just want
Kate Blanchett
the
was like the best one.
Right,
you know
right,
what
right.
I mean?
We just want the spirit of the character. Nobody gives a shit if they actually look like him or not.
Right, right. But then again, you know, we loved it in Irishman, you know, like that was done. But again, you said we've talked about this before. It's because Scorsese's a fucking genius.
Yeah. I didn't love it. It worked because Scorsese is a master. I wouldn't say it was like my favorite part of the movie, but yeah, it was fine. But
it wasn't distracting from the movie.
No, it didn't. Except for that scene when he was trying to beat up the guy on the sidewalk. When De Niro's still 70, trying to beat up a guy looking like he's 30, and that part didn't work. Everything else was fantastic. So,
and then he had a kid.
Which, man, people are butthurt about this shit when old men have children. I don't like that.
I don't even want to talk about that. I mean, it's just too much. All right, so listen, I think we got to be done with this film because, like, there's a lot more to talk about in life and movies and all the things we've been doing in the last 3 weeks that we haven't talked. But I want to, if anything else you want to say about this film, like, let's hit it. But I mean, go see this film. I loved it. It's so great. It's so beautiful to look at, beautiful to hear. Everything molds together in a perfectly pleasing way, and you won't be sorry that you watched it.
Okay, so yeah, maybe talk just a little bit more about Casey Affleck. I really do love him. We are going to pair this with Manchester by the Sea next week, which is a very different movie, which I'm very excited to talk about. I fucking love that movie.
Oh, yeah.
And I largely paired him because of him. And I just absolutely think he's so perfect in this movie as playing like a tortured person. That's kind of what I was realizing. Like Casey Affleck plays tortured really fucking well. I mean, more so in Manchester, but like this one, he is tortured throughout the whole movie because he's constantly trying to be like these guys, being disappointed by being made fun of by them, realizing that Jesse James is not the man that he was expecting, and then the last 20 minutes of this movie just mourning in his act of killing Jesse James. And so it's like, the movie works really fucking well because Affleck is great. So
agreed. And that's a great way to segue into what we'll be talking about next week, in which I cannot wait. Manchester by the Sea is a terrific film. It's about as real as it gets out there with films about what that film is about. I mean, just like the emotions and the torment, like you mentioned. And I'll tell you what, I sat next to that guy at a restaurant.
Which guy?
And Casey Affleck.
Oh, nice.
I sat next to him at a restaurant, a couple seats away, and then also stood next to him at Coachella. And both times I thought, this guy's still tortured. There's something going on with this guy. Even him in general, he just has that kind of gait to him, kind of like feel around him. And I'm telling you, I would like right next to him, it's watching him eat with his kids. And then the other time he's like with his girlfriend at Coachella, all places that should be pretty much like normal. He still felt sad to me, but you know, I don't know.
I mean, it runs in the family, him and his brother. I fucking love Ben Affleck. And I mean, his troubles have been well documented, unfortunately. I mean, a lot of times it really feels like being famous would fucking suck. And when you have like the whole world watching you, if you're like having a tough time or whatnot. But I fucking love Ben Affleck. A movie that I think is super underrated is The Way Back. It's about a basketball coach and alcoholism. One that came out maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Just another one that like both these guys. I mean, the brothers, they're so good. And I mean, they have it's well documented. Their family went through a lot of struggles ever since they were kids, and so it does kind of show up in a lot of performances. And I'm here for both of them for sure.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of times the struggles come hand in hand with great artists, and maybe that's what we're saying here. I mean, hell, I didn't know I was going to say Ben Affleck is a great artist here, but I do enjoy most everything he does. I do enjoy Casey Affleck a wee bit better.
Yeah,
a wee bit more.
I'm fucking great. There is one Casey Affleck movie that I watched about a year or two ago. It's not that old. It was like a post epidemic movie where Light of My Life. You heard of this?
No.
2019. It's a parent and child journey through the outskirts of society a decade after a pandemic has wiped out half of the world's population. This was 2019. So it was definitely before. As a father struggles to protect his child, their bond and the character of humanity is tested. So it starts with him, and he's raising his daughter, who she's still young. He poses her as a boy, basically to protect her, because it is a pandemic that's largely wiped out a lot of women. And so women are especially vulnerable in this world. And so it's like him protecting his daughter through that world. It was a fucking great movie. It's just a movie that I had never heard come out. Oh, and I'm just realizing he directed this one too. So he starred and directed in this one, Light of My Life. So if you're on the Casey Affleck train, check this one out for sure.
Well, he's certainly gone through the ringer in public. But I will say there's a film that he, and I haven't seen him in too much, but I saw him show up in Oppenheimer for a little role. And
so good in that.
Yeah.
That's right. He was terrifying in that movie in such a subtle way. It's like you don't even know why you're afraid of this guy, but like he does such a good job of being like an imposing bureaucratic figure.
Yeah. And it's kind of like shows up at an interesting time in that film. Like you're just like, don't really there's Casey Affleck, right. That's kind of some of the criticism I've heard about him in Interstellar is that like, okay, do we need to have like Casey Affleck and what's her name be the kids, like or then like when you show up on the planet, do we need it to be Matt Damon? Like does everybody have to be a star in this damn movie?
Well, the Matt Damon one, I fully support that cameo. Yeah. But yeah, I'm just realizing that he was in Interstellar, and I fucking love Interstellar. It's one of my favorite movies from him. But yeah, that you're right. He didn't need to be in that one. He didn't add anything to that. I guess.
Right. I agree with both of those kids. They didn't need to be stars, but yeah, I could live with it. The one I can't, and everybody agrees with this, you don't need Matt Damon. Like, you don't need Matt Damon to all of a sudden show up in the movie,
No, that's great. That's definitely what made that ridiculous cameo work, is that so my favorite Matt Damon is asshole Matt Damon. I mean, comedic Matt Damon. Comedic Matt Damon is great, but asshole, shithead Matt Damon, that's by far my favorite. So...
he sure is that in Interstellar, that's for sure. I didn't enjoy that movie as much as I was hoping I would, but we could talk about that when we cover it. I promise
you, though, in 10 years, after you've watched it 2 or 3 more times, you will love it way more. Because I was the same way. I saw it in theaters. I was okay on it, but it's by far the one that's risen the most in his filmography.
Wow. I mean, that's okay. Maybe you're right. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Trust me, like the stuff that you don't like about it, I get. But the stuff that's great about it, it works so well and just gets better. But we're not talking about Interstellar. We're finishing up on Jesse James. One last thought I thought about this. I mean, like I said, this movie is about paranoia. And one thing I was thinking about is that I love how this movie is bookended by the splitting up of brothers. So it starts with Frank and Jesse James like splitting up, and that kind of spurs on like his paranoia, like basically that I read it as like that's the beginning of Jesse James's like downfall. Is that like he's losing his older brother, all the shit that he's done is starting to get to him. He can't trust anybody, and the slow descent. And then it ends with because I don't think we've mentioned it. Casey Affleck and Sam Rockwell are brothers in this. They're the Ford brothers,
right?
And it ends with basically them splitting after Casey Affleck murders Jesse James. And so, like, it's not like obvious, but I think it is intentional with kind of like that book ending of the breaking up of like a brotherhood.
And I had never thought about that. I'm glad you brought it up because that is very similar. Both end up with, well, spoiler alert, both of the Fords die at the end, but we assume that Frank James is out there still at the end of this film. Yeah,
that's true. One last thing I want to ask you. I mean, so Jesse James, he gives Robert Ford the gun basically as a present. And he soon learns about the conspiring in the newspaper. He basically learns that Robert Ford was conspiring against him. That's basically why he kind of gives up when he sees the gun being pointed at his head. He's basically, he's kind of been suicidal largely throughout the whole movie, but do you feel like he gave the gun knowing that it was going to be a threat to his life or not?
And this is the point of the movie that I think the director is definitely giving a lot of creative license to the audience.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of that scene. And it's done very well by everybody. But you kind of think, okay, like instead of having to kill himself, he's going to let Bob Ford kill him. He's tired. He doesn't want to keep on going. He's looking out the window before that happens, and he can hear his daughter and stuff. And I think the way I would perceive it is that he gave up and let Bob Ford kill him, because you don't think that Jesse James in any day is ever going to like let his guard down and take his guns off. And
no, he definitely gave up in the moment when he sees the reflection in the gun in his like head.
I think he gave up before that though. Yeah.
So because I guess mostly it's just whether he I guess my question is whether he trusted Robert Ford when he was giving him the gun, because it seemed like he
trusted him at all the whole
movie. You don't think he did? I feel like he kind of did, but then him reading the paper and seeing the name, I forget the name of their
Dick
partner.
Little.
Yeah, Dick Little. The one who was conspiring against him, and he also saw Robert Ford's name. And so I feel like it was him reading that that was like the switch. It was like, oh, I trusted Robert Ford. I was wrong about that. So my paranoia has actually been true. And so that's kind of like what's basically made him give up at that point. It's like, I kind of think he did actually kind of trust Robert Ford near the end, as they got maybe a little bit closer. And then seeing that name in the paper was just like, well, this almost confirms everything that I've been paranoid about. And this is me basically giving up at that point.
Yeah. I mean, he also just has doesn't probably think the whole time that Bob Ford would have and because he's just it's a scared kid,
right?
That everybody doesn't really take seriously. So I don't think he ever really thinks he's going to get shot by him. Like, he's too scared. He's too weak. He's a coward,
Right.
And lo and behold, that's what happens. And God, what a amazing thing for a film to kill Brad Pitt and then continue on telling that story. It's almost surprising when you watch it, but like you said, it's not about Brad Pitt. It's not about Jesse James, really. It's about Robert Ford, and the story isn't complete, right? Just, as soon as Jesse James is killed, there's a lot more of the story to tell. And I think they go on for another 45 minutes or so.
Yeah. He's got to hook up with Zooey Deschanel and then have a couple more drinks.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Love it. Any final thoughts on this movie that you fucking love?
No, I honestly just really fucking can't get it out of my mind, and I probably never will. I enjoy it so much. And like I said, just has to do with the perfect melding of everything that makes movies great. Music, visuals, acting, directing. It's got it all. it's a perfect package, really, you know.
Fully endorsed by both of us. So fantastic. Assassination of Robert. I fucked it up. I started it good and I fucked it up. You finish it up.
The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. That dirty little coward who shot Mr. Howard.
Oh, yeah, we're definitely going to put that song on the playlist.
I mean, for sure.
I think that's a good one. Yeah, first song on Warren Zevon's first album, Frank and Jesse James. Pretty epic. It's like that. That's how he started his career, with that song. So
wait, Zevon started his career with Frank and Jesse James?
That's the first track on his first studio album. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That song kicks ass, man.
That's what I was texting you. When I texted you, I was like, opening track on his first album. Like that's his that was his introduction to the world.
I didn't quite get what you meant by that.
Yeah. I mean, he had like B-sides before, but that was his first studio album from '76. That's the same album with Desperado Under the Eaves. So
wow, awesome.
Yeah, we like Warren Zevon in this podcast quite a bit. So.
Yeah, if you are a listener, you'd know that. If you don't listen, you probably still know that.
Yeah.
Fucking crazy about Zevon.
You do know that now, and if you haven't listened to Zevon, go check them out.
Yeah.
All right. What else? Anything good you're watching? I've been on a Godzilla kick, so that's a lot of what I've been watching. So how about you?
I've been killing it, crushing it. My TV that I've had since 2011 just shit out on me last night. It's a bummer, but I'm kind of excited about it because 2011, all I've been using is that Chromecast, and that thing never works. So, I'm looking forward to getting a smart TV probably in November when sales are out. But last night I was watching, kind of apropos, it was the Roger Corman presents all the Vincent Price stuff with the Edgar Allan Poe material on Criterion, and it is superb, and it's going to be gone at the end of September. So any of you guys out there that have Criterion better watch it soon. And it's so enjoyable, man, just for what it is, Roger Corman. And then there's a little 30-minute intro with Roger Corman, and it's funny, he talks about working with Vincent Price, because Vincent Price is in all these films, and he just kind of talks about borrowing sets from stuff that was left over from huge productions. And it's I just love the guerrilla filmmaking style, 60s feel, weird horror, weird, not just kind of schlocky, but at the same time good. And yeah, I've been enjoying that a ton.
Oh, I was cracking up. So a couple months ago, we talked about Treat Williams when he passed away, and one movie I brought up was Dead Heat, which was this great 80s horror comedy with Treat and Joe Piscopo. It's as ridiculous as it sounds, and so I watched it. It's fucking great. I watched it again, and I totally forgot that Vincent Price shows up in that one.
Oh yeah, no shit.
Awesome cameo in that one. So if you've seen the movie, you definitely know that it fits the Vincent Price vibe. So
awesome. Yeah, and we watched the other day because again on Criterion they have that film The Craft, and I had never seen it before. Have you seen The Craft?
I mean, I watched it a bunch when I was a kid, so I probably haven't seen it since I was 13 or 14.
Fuck? Everybody but me has watched it a ton when they were kids, I assume. So here's the thing, not a great film. Well, one thing. My guess is you just turned your nose up at it back then, and then now you're just saying it's not that great. Yes, 100%. You know me too well. I turned my nose up at it because maybe I felt at the time I didn't really have anything to connect with it, and maybe I was oh, it's for girls or something. I wouldn't feel that way now, but back in the day, maybe I was oh, this is kind of a girl movie about being a witch, and it's deeper than that. And it's also, if you, again, as I always say, putting yourself in context of the time that it was made, you've probably never seen a film like this before. And it's slow moving, dude. It's, it's got I always the entire time wanted it to be Scream. or I wanted it to be like whatever, insert whatever 90s high school movie kicks fucking ass, you know, where you got like fun high school shit. It's pretty serious the whole time. There's not too much like jokey stuff or anything like that, or, you know,
I remember it being pretty funny. I don't know. Maybe I got a sixth sense of humor. So
yeah, I mean, I liked it. Okay, so I liked it. I didn't think it was like all. I maybe it was like the hype or something, because like I've of course heard of The Craft for like years and years and years, and I love Nev Campbell, of course. And I guess that girl who plays the lead, my girlfriend was. What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry, not the lead. Which one? Fairuza Balk.
Yeah, she owns like a witchy store that we went into here. And I'm probably gonna get like, there's probably gonna be like a spell cast over me because I said I didn't like this film. But
yeah, like, dude, come on.
Yeah. Well, anyway, she owns a witchy store out here, and we actually went into it. And Marianne, my girlfriend, was telling me like, "Oh yeah, this is the girl from The Craft owns this." And I was like, I don't know what that, you know.
It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, so I guess she's still into that stuff.
For all you Craft heads, I fully support The Craft. It's a great movie. Don't listen to Darren. But Fairuza Balk, I mean, she's the legend. Fucking Return to Oz.
I know.
Maybe the most terrifying fucking movie to grace our childhood. Mm-hmm. Man, that movie. I need to rewatch that. I haven't seen it in a couple of years.
I didn't see it till like the pandemic. And that was the first time I saw it because my girlfriend was like, "Yo, you ever seen Return to Oz?" And I was like, "No." And yeah, I was freaked out. That's an amazing film.
But that's
why did they think that was gonna like work as like a sequel to Wizard of Oz?
But that's the thing. I mean, so for anybody listening who saw Return to Oz as a child, it's like, I mean, you've talked about never ending story. Like movies were not afraid to fuck kids up with their trauma in the 80s. And that's just not a thing that happens anymore. And that was one that was way up there. Because man, that images of those Wheelers, that stuck with me for years as a kid. I mean, granted, it stuck with me. I kept on watching the movie because I was a horror.
Look away. Yeah.
I was a horror hound ever since I was a kid, but it was still like some crazy stuff going on. Well, now I need to watch The Craft again. So
yeah, we may have to like insert a few remainders episodes of some horror films, you know, coming up here in October.
I mean, I'm looking forward. So another 90s classic I'm going to go see at the Music Box, playing a Friday night 10 p.m. showing of The Crow. So I'm pretty excited to see that. That's one I haven't seen. Another one I haven't seen since the 90s. So it'll be fun to revisit that.
93, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 93.
Sounds right. Yeah, 93 or 94. The Cure song "Burn," which has become like one of their staples in their playlist these days. That's one that always brings you back to that movie. Okay, so can we pivot then to Riot Fest? Did you attend? I did not go to Riot Fest. Yeah, part of it was timing. The other part was how fucking perfect the Cure show when I went up to see him in Minnesota was. I was not going to match that experience because I was almost the front row for that show. It was absolutely perfect, and I almost was just like, I'm not gonna mess with that. I'm just gonna leave that experience as it is, and then and skip out on Riot Fest this year. Because I dig that decision. I think that's smart. Yeah. When you see something and you're like, damn, that was like maybe the best I'm ever gonna do. Like, no need to go. You know, at least for this round. I mean, I would go see them every other night. That's how much I love them. But again, like, you know, it's a giant festival. If you go to giant festivals, you know it's not always the most ideal way to watch a band, especially a band that you really, really love. Yeah. So that's what it is. Fortunately, it didn't get rained out. The first part of the Sunday with some major thunderstorms early Sunday morning here, and so they had to cut it off, and they didn't open until like 2 or 2:30. So a couple of the bands got pushed back, a couple got cut, but fortunately, it was all clear by the end of the night, and they had like a 2.5 hour set, The Cure, on the schedulers. They didn't put anybody against The Cure because they're just giving them that respect, not playing anybody against them. So, damn, yeah. Well, it looked like people had a good time from what I saw. I attended. Well, so with two things that I think would be good in movie dumb.
yeah, what do you say, moviedom, I don't know, in like the film world, people might find exciting. I went and saw Matthew McConaughey speak the other day.
Oh, no shit. Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
and Catherine Schwarzenegger interviewed him, and he has a new book, a children's book out, and so my girlfriend's on these email lists because we tried to go see Jim Carrey before the pandemic happened, and then it got canceled, and so we didn't get. He had a book coming out, and we were gonna go see him anyway. She's on this email list and was like, "Oh, Matthew McConaughey." We're like, "We got to go see that," you know. And yeah, it was kick ass, of course. You know,
Awesome.
he was cool to hear talk, and a little less curated than he is on the internet, of course, live. You know, so it was kind of interesting in that respect. Then we went and had dinner at the Culver City Hotel, which is almost 100 years old now, and it's popular for a lot of reasons. Everybody from old Hollywood would stay there, but one of the most notable things is that during the filming of Wizard of Oz, which was filmed across the street at MGM, the Lollipop Guild, all the Munchkins stayed there, and so there's like stories that they like wreaked havoc and like partied in there, but there was an underground tunnel that went to MGM from the Culver City Hotel, and so like they would take that to go to work every day. And we got to like after we had dinner, we kind of snuck upstairs and kind of looked around. It's like supposed to be haunted and stuff like that, so it was like a really fun day.
Hell yeah, love it. Catherine Schwarzenegger, what is she, I mean, what does she do? Did she do anything other than be Arnold's daughter?
Yeah, well, like, you know, I don't want to be an asshole here, but yeah, I think the way that she was introduced.
Oh, she's
like,
married to Chris Pratt, isn't
yeah.
she? Okay,
and yeah, I'm sure she does a lot. I don't really follow much of what she's up to. Maria Shriver was in the audience, and as a Kennedy fanatic myself, that was pretty cool. But I will say that they introduced her as like she does like live streams or something on for mothers, and helps mothers with like, you know, postpartum stuff or something like that, I think.
Oh, wait, I have heard she's like a wellness person. I know she does something like that. Okay. I watched the second part out of 3 of the Arnold documentary. So
I liked it. I saw it too.
Did you watch it all?
Yeah.
Okay. So I watched the first 2 parts so far. Fucking awesome. Did you ever read his book, The Total Recall? It's like 10 years old.
No.
It's fucking fantastic. Like if you like the documentary, like he goes into everything that's in the documentary, just like way more detail. And I think they largely base the documentary off of his text from that.
Okay.
I was really surprised when I read that because it kind of, I mean, it looked kind of basic. Like it wasn't going to be like very informative, but like he's like candid about everything in his life in that book. So I would definitely.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I thought was cool. And you probably won't get into stuff that's, you know, regrets or anything like that, like until the 3rd episode. But yeah, I was kind of surprised by that he was pretty honest about stuff.
Yeah. It's awesome. I have not been getting out at all. Been working hard. I did get out to the Music Box to see Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 with Caroline Williams in the audience and doing a Q&A after.
Awesome.
2 is pretty even with the first one, has been one of my favorites. And the scene with Oingo Boingo playing is fucking fantastic. Such a good vibe. And it was... why is his name escaping me now? You just said it earlier. The singer of Oingo Boingo.
Oh, Danny Elfman.
Danny Elfman. I mean, just thinking of like him doing the theme to Batman and The Simpsons, creating those like within a couple of years of each other. Like
Pee-wee, dude.
Pee-wee, but I just mean like the theme song of The Simpsons was like, you know, like I heard that probably every day for 10 years as a child. And I guess as a kid, I never kind of realized it was coming from him, but just like as an adult now, hearing like the bongo parts of the song, I was just like, yeah, this sounds exactly like Batman. So
I saw him perform both of those live. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that would have been. I mean, that reminds me of like seeing John Carpenter. Like, was he showing like the stills from the movies in the back? Yeah, Carpenter did the exact same thing. Oh, so great. Such a great way to watch these cinematic musicians.
There's so much that I will say I recently went to Disney World or Disneyland. I don't know which one it is out here. Um,
I have no idea.
I was gifted a trip to Disney,
Nice.
and I wouldn't have done it because it's expensive as hell. But I was like, always wanted to go, and so we went. And I gotta tell you, man, I enjoyed it like a lot. Um, Especially because they, like you're saying about like the kids stuff, like kind of not being afraid to scare the shit out of kids. This experience at Disney is not necessarily what I thought it was going to be. Like, princesses and princes. I mean, sure, there's that, but a lot of the old rides, like that's what I'm there for. It's like fucking scary shit, like I don't know. I enjoyed it a lot, and that's something I did within the last 2 weeks.
Nice. I mean, I've never been to either one of them, but you're saying it's like more geared towards adults, maybe more so than you expect.
Yeah, that more than I thought. And I mean, I guess it's something for everybody, but like a lot of the old rides that were there when it first started are kind of, dark, and there's a lot more funhouse vibe. You know that scene in Ed Wood where like they meet up on the funhouse ride and they're kind of and it stops in the middle and he's like, well, I like to wear women's clothes, and she's like, okay, that's such a great scene. But a lot of it is like that kind of a funhouse, like, and I'm there for that. I love that. I love all that old kind of scary, like not like a crazy ride or anything, but like you're like next turn might be like, a skull that comes up right in front of you or something like that. I love that.
Hey, I'm all for shit that doesn't cater to only families. So
yeah. Though I guess that's the thing is I was pleasantly surprised with Disney.
Somebody was mentioning how like back in the 90s when Las Vegas went through a phase of like trying to cater to families. They went through like this whole marketing kind of phase where like, yeah, bring the whole family. And that was just something like I feel that was just more prevalent and luckily less prevalent now. It's like one, fewer people are having kids than ever. Two, it's certainly much more celebrated to not have kids these days. And three, nobody has money if they have kids. And so, so I love just the idea of Las Vegas going through this identity crisis in the 90s, being like, yeah, bring your kids. Why not? And then, 15 years later, like, yeah, well, you really fucked up with that thing, right?
Yeah. Sorry about all your kids needing to be in rehab.
Right.
But yeah, it's been fun around here, doing a couple things that I hadn't, a little out of my comfort zone for a few things and getting out of the house. Glad to do it. And yeah, man, I don't know. Excited about October coming up here. There's going to be a lot of good, awesome content coming from Criterion that's going to be coming out soon. And I know obviously Shudder. So it's our time to shine.
It's our time to shine and celebrate Rob Zombie's Halloween double feature because we're speaking the good word of those movies. So.
Always. I mean, come on.
We need to speak up for the misbegotten ones. So.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I'm excited for October too. I'm going to talk some music.
Yeah, let's head into what my recent song choice is a record that came out on Friday. My friend, I think I told you, Chris Mason, he's staying with me and he was like, dude, have you heard, well, two things. He was like, have you heard the Hives record? And then, and I haven't listened to it yet, but he was like, dude, you don't sleep on the new Hives. And his second thing was, have you heard of the Beaches before? And I was like, no. He's like, let's put it on right now. And so it's a all female band from Canada. I think they've been around since 2013, and they just put out a record on Friday called Blame My Ex. And the song that I've been like listening to on repeat is their first single, I think, on it called Blame My Ex. It's the name of the record. So awesome tune. I don't really know what else to say other than the whole record is fucking awesome. First like full record I've heard in a while that was like really up my alley, and I've been enjoying the shit out of it. So that's my song of the week. Just want a little attention on that tune. I think you'll love it if you In fact, I know you'll love it. I know your style. You'll dig it.
Wait, which song were you going with them? You said "Blame My Ex" was one of their greatest songs, or is that your pick?
Yeah, that's my pick. That's their like most popular probably right now. They're to put it in perspective, I think they just like kind of blown up. They've been a band since 2013, and their tour for this record, which I think they're starting right now, is all sold out.
Nice. Yeah. So a coworker mentioned them.
Oh yeah.
In the last couple of weeks, said either they were going to see them. They must have played Chicago really recently, because I know there was mention of. Oh yeah, here we go. They're playing here in October at Shop. I think they played Pitchfork here, so it might have been that that they saw them there, and they mentioned that they're great too. So I hadn't listened. I heard them talk about it. I did not listen to it yet though, so I'll check them out.
The song is fucking great. I mean, it really, really, really good. You're gonna love it. It's like "Blame My Ex," you know. Basically, like, I'm gonna be a fucking complete disaster right now, and like, we're not gonna fall in love, and I just want to have sex with you. Tune, you know.
All right, rock and roll.
Yeah, rock and roll for sure.
Sweet. All right, on the list, I am going with a band called Solid State Radio. They got a new album out this year. So it's Randy Michael, who was the guitarist of the Atlanta band The Woes, which was a fucking awesome rock and roll band that went for years, not just several years. They put out maybe 3, possibly 4 albums from like late 2000s to early 2010s, and then they've been kind of broken up, mostly on and off since then. Band I absolutely love, and he was the guitarist, and so this is his new band, Solid State Radio. I think he's only had 1 album with them, and it's really fucking great so far. The Woes was a little bit more older rock and roll, like think like early Rolling Stones is kind of the vibe that they sounded with.
Yeah, I like the Woes. Yeah.
Oh, you do know them?
Yeah,
okay.
I do. I know like one song. I don't know how I know it, but I have it on like a playlist from like 2 years ago or something.
Hell yeah. So I had seen them several times when they were touring throughout those years here in Chicago. I think I saw them in Atlanta, actually, also. That's where they're from. I think I saw them when I went to Atlanta for The Cure. I also caught the Woes at a local shop then. So that was always that was a fantastic road trip. But yeah, Solid State Radio, their album has been, I've been listening to that quite a bit. You Gotta Wear It or Let It Go. That's the album. And the song I'm going with is Ready, Steady, Go. He describes this as cinematic pop. So it's actually kind of in line with what we were talking about, kind of music that's often cinematic, and it still has a vibe of the Woes, but it has a little bit more subdued, almost a little, not quite shoegaze, but like certainly not like harder rock and roll like the Woes was. So been digging the album. And yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Look forward to hearing it. I do love the Woes.
Yeah. So what playlist? Because I know there's been issues with the Woes and their record rights, because like their music is not on Spotify anymore. I don't think it was on Spotify for like a short period of time, and then it's been off since. You can find all their stuff on YouTube. So if you just
it's on a playlist that I put it on. I don't know. It may have been one of those things where like I, heard it and like put it on the playlist. So if it's not on anymore, then I do playlists every year for like my favorite songs that I dig in.
So you were saying you're a Spotify playlist, you're saying?
That I made.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, it's probably not on there anymore. All their stuff, like I said, is on YouTube. So you can just type in the Woes Atlanta and you'll find a lot of all their albums in full. So if you haven't checked them out, also recommend for them to listen to that. So fun band, Solid State Radio, loving this new album. So, and then also definitely going to put Frank and Jesse James one more Z on.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Cool.
So I know I was cruising through our jukebox the other day. I played it mostly in full over a couple of days. Man, there's some fucking great songs on this playlist. Like this is like it got such a fucking fun back and forth vibe, because there's so many different tastes and flavors.
It's eclectic to say the least, you know, because one day you're listening to Elvis Presley sing, you know, his ballad, and then, you know, here we go into like some really, really black metal.
I mean, Norwegian and Swedish black metal and Elvis, in my mind, go really well together. So
they oddly enough, they do. You just gotta listen to the podcast. So
love it.
All right, man. Well, cool. I think we've got a lot of good talk about the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. Say that 10 times fast.
Oh, you crushed it. I'm not going to try to do that. So.
Yeah. Perfect timing.
We've almost made it to the end. I think we can keep it in. Darren's getting a signal from technology that to wrap up the show. So next week we are continuing Casey Affleck with Manchester by the Sea. Very excited for that, and looking forward to it. Anything else?
Right, no more difficulties in the next episode.
All right, Bart. I'll talk to you next time.
All right, talk to you guys 2 weeks.
Sounds good.
See ya.